the Talk of the Town segment on the 23rd day of July. So Union County, just like every other county in North Carolina, is faced with a very, very difficult 2020 school year that's getting ready to start back. Our superintendent of public schools is Dr. Houlihan. He's joining us by phone this morning to take a little while to talk to us. We appreciate it. How you doing today, Dr. Houlihan?
Doing great. Good morning. Happy Thursday.
You too, man. I guess it's safe to say that not many vacations been taken this summer, and it certainly hasn't been boring around here.
No, it certainly has not. It has been probably the busiest summer I've personally ever had, and I know that our staff and our team share those same thoughts as well. So we are literally working 24/7. It seems like.
Yeah. Well, one of the the big thing, of course, is school starting back, and the governor setting forth what the rules have to be for school to start back. And we've talked about the outline of how the classes are going to be, and, one day a week. And I guess the biggest question everybody has is any of this or all of this subject to change?
I mean, the short answer is yes. It's all subject to change, and it could go either way. I think that right now we're moving forward with Plan B. If things, which is the ABCD rotation one day that you mentioned,
yeah.
If things change from a health standpoint, then we could revert back. If they get better, we could move forward to getting closer to Plan A. And I think it's really important for everyone to remember that even after the school year starts, things could change there too, within a single building or within the district. So it is a very fluid time right now, and I think patience for everyone is going to be absolutely critical.
Dr. Houlihan, I want to ask you, there have been other states and other areas that in North Carolina, other counties that have delayed the opening by, a couple weeks, and some, even a little bit more than that. What's the harm in doing that to give this a little more time? We're starting to see, the straightening of the curve a little bit. Has there been talk about, because we're set to go back, August 17th, right?
That is correct, and that is actually a legislative mandate for North Carolina. All North Carolina public schools are required to start August 17th. Discussions on do we need to start in some cases with remote learning only. That may be an option, but right now we are really focusing on our Plan B of, again, that daily rotation beginning August 17th. But in North Carolina, we don't have the flexibility on that compared to some other states. That is a new general statute.
One of the things that parents are super concerned about, and we've heard this from a number of parents, is all this stuff is, say, in second grade. Kindergartners and first graders, we keep hearing that it's important for those children to be on campus as much as possible, and there's not necessarily an online protocol, which would be hard for kids that age. Is there any wiggle room, talk, or discussions being had about getting those kids to campus more?
Absolutely, and I'll add in also our exceptional children's also.
Like Wolf School, yeah.
Education. Yeah, our special education population. There are a significant amount of students that it would be much beneficial for them to be in school more days than just one day a week face-to-face. And that is part of our plan. We're working on a kind of a tiered student assignment plan that we're looking at trying to, after we get the school year going, assessing our numbers, assessing kind of how this is working, and then slowly adding more pre-K, kindergarten, first grade students in. And that's really going to be in tandem with, we're offering what we're calling the Plan D, which is a virtual academy. So students in grades 2 through 12 can sign up for kind of like a school within a school model that's going to be taught by a virtual teacher, taught by a teacher from your school, but in a pure virtual setting. And if more students select that as an option, it will lower and decrease the number of kids that would require the face-to-face or want the face-to-face, which will give us some more flexibility to add those student groups back in. So it is something that we're going to monitor and evaluate literally on a daily, weekly basis. And as soon as we can add more students in, like you mentioned, pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, that is going to be a priority.
Do you have any idea at all about, even if it's an educated guess, about the percentage of people who may choose option D, as in dog? I know you folks are taking I guess applications is the right word now.
Right. We had a survey. It closed last night. I have not seen the results quite yet. I know that throughout the week, more of our parents were choosing that Plan B compared to the Plan D. As of yesterday, I think we had a little bit close to 2,500 applications for the virtual academy, but the overwhelming majority of our families are choosing Plan B. Again, I don't have the actual data in front of me, but that's where the data is trending, and that closed last night. The virtual academy application, that is going to close on Sunday evening.
Okay.
Dr. Houlihan, there are a lot of families that are single parent or two income families, and they just don't have the luxury of staying home with their kids, but they have to work. They got to pay their bills. And what about families that can't quit their job and they don't have an extended family member that can watch the kids on the other 4 days then they're not in school? Then you got the concern about families that don't have a computer or don't have the internet. It just seems like there's going to be a lot of young children at home alone. I can only speak for myself. I could not have survived virtual learning on my own without a parent looking over my shoulder. I just know I couldn't have done it, and I'm not the only one. But what? And I know there's several parts to this question. First off, address the single parents and the working families that can't afford to quit their job to be with their kids 4 days a week.
Sure, we certainly recognize that, and we are working with our partners throughout Union County to see what we can do from a partnership standpoint. As an example, the Boys and Girls Club, we have a fantastic partnership with them. Hopefully meeting soon with South Piedmont Community College, possibly the YMCA, other kinds of public or private groups that might be able to partner with us effectively to offer some kind of child care or daycare or services for families that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. We also have to consider our own employees because that is a big question as well that we're still working through and hope to have an answer by the end of this week. With our employees coming to work that may have young children, that's also a challenge. What will they do while they're teaching?
Yeah.
That is another big piece of this puzzle and that our team is working on right now.
Dr. Houlihan, as an educator yourself, you know the importance of especially younger children getting one-on-one instruction. It makes a huge difference for the younger kids who are just starting out. They really need to be in school. Virtual learning and all that, maybe for the older kids, but these younger ones, there really needs to be a push on to get those kids in school.
Absolutely, and I think going back to one of your other questions about remote learning and virtual learning, we learned a lot from last spring. I tell people that really last spring, I don't refer to that as remote learning. That was more like emergency remote learning.
Yes, sir.
Because, it was just overnight we were in that situation. And yeah. I think we've learned a lot of lessons. One of the things that parents can expect this year is a combination of live instruction and what we're calling on-demand, so resources, videos, etc. We recognize that we must make sure that our teachers have the capacity to deliver instruction in a live format, even though that they are working remotely and students are working from home possibly. So that might be a live stream, that might be face-to-face in terms of small group, that could be one-on-one. And so I think our students, what we're working on are developing student schedules so that when you come to school on your face-to-face day, this is the schedule that we're going to follow with the class. When you're at home, this is kind of the remote learning schedule where you will have your core classes taught in that fashion. So a lot of work still to do on that, but I think that could be very promising for our families to have that direct interaction with the teacher at least once a day.
Tell me how you envision the student experience being like under both B and D.
Either way, I mean, it's obviously going to be significantly different. Under Plan B, there are significant amount of safety and health protocols and measures that are in place. Face coverings have to be worn, social distancing, 6 feet separation. We'll be checking temperatures every day when you arrive to school. We'll be limiting visitors. So a lot of different changes on the personal interaction of when you go to school and what that will look like, and obviously a smaller classroom environment. And with the virtual D, the Plan D, or even remote learning, like I mentioned, we're going to be checking attendance every day. We're going to need our kids to be engaged. We're going to be providing brand new Chromebooks to grades 2, 3, 4, and 5, and hopefully, still exploring the purchasing of additional technology and equipment for possibly K-1. And we have a fantastic partnership with the 1 Million Project, which is an effort from Sprint to provide additional hotspots, 5G hotspots, for individuals and families who may need internet access. So we're trying really to build up that infrastructure and make it, when you're at home or wherever you may be in remote learning, that it is engaging and that it is that combination of live instruction and on demand. So it should be very different from last spring.
Let me ask you this, Dr. Houlihan. Some schools in this county are overcrowded. Some schools in the county are not. In order to make this 1 day a week learning work, and I know that, or 1 week in school, I should say, work, one day a week in person learning, will there be a situation where kids may have to go to a different school because of, some places in this county are much more populated than other places? Are we going to see any of that, or do you even know yet?
I really don't know yet. I mean, right now the answer is no. I mean, again, that could change if we start wanting to add more students into a more face-to-face environment.
And buses will run?
Buses will run. Buses are going to run every day. I'm still working on the plan for Fridays, because Fridays is a remote learning day for all students.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but again, using other buildings for other classrooms and different grade levels, that could always be a possibility, but that is not part of our plan for the start of the school year.
Dr. Houlihan, I want to ask you a several-part question, and you can answer. It has to do with sports. Can students who are enrolled in the virtual academy participate in athletics or other school activities? How would that work? And where do we stand with Union County athletics at this point?
So with the virtual academy option, if a student signs up for that, the short answer is yes. They can participate with extracurricular clubs, after school, sports, based on what that school provides. They will probably have to provide their own transportation to that school in order to participate with that practice, because we won't be able to run buses and shuttles and those kinds of things. Second part is, I'm very, very proud of our athletic program right now. We are one of the only counties in the region that are participating in the summer volunteer workout programs, mostly conditioning for our high school sports that start in the fall. The High School Athletic Association moved the official start date for practices to September 1 as opposed to August 1. And, we're following the direction of the High School Athletic Association. We hope that there will be some form of fall sports and athletics. They have not made a decision on that yet, but I am very, very proud of the success we've had and proven that, even in these summer workouts, when you follow the requirements, when you do what you're told, when you're not complacent about the health and safety piece, we can get this thing done. And we've proven that right now with our athletic program. So that's kind of where we are, and I'm very, very hopeful we have a fall sports season.
Dr. Houlihan, some school board members have posted on social media, and I'll get your thoughts on it. If you're a rising senior and you have aspirations of playing college sports, then you do not need to be enrolling in the virtual academy, because that hasn't been worked out yet.
Yeah, so kind of breaking news yesterday overnight. I just saw it literally last evening. The NCAA has kind of changed their position to say that if you are enrolled in an all virtual classes, that those core classes will be accepted by the NCAA from an eligibility standpoint. So they have actually changed those rules.
Okay.
And we're confirming that with DPI and other sources today. But we actually believe that moving forward, that will be an option for our student athletes if they wanted to do that.
If a senior chooses the virtual academy, will they have access to college and career planning support?
Absolutely. Fridays are, again, remote learning days for all. That could be a time, by appointment only, where, kids could come in and meet with counselors or could meet with a career coach. That's going to be done 5 days a week virtually as well through appointments in small groups and one-on-one. And so our counseling team, our career directors, they are working on those plans as well to make sure that all of our students have access to them whenever they need them.
Let me ask you this, because I think this is a concern. I've had several parents pose this question to me, and I don't know how to answer it. You're much more qualified than I am, but I'll ask the question. Some parents are very concerned that school will start back. We'll go through the first 6-week period. The grades will come out, and grades are going to drop, and some folks are afraid they're going to drop drastically. The average grade of a student and how a school system performs has a lot. I mean, there's funding that goes along with it. There's, the number of kids that are fed in a cafeteria determines how many people work in that cafeteria. There's just all kind of things from a grade standpoint. What happens if the first report card comes out and grades just bottom out?
Yeah, so we recognize that, in a normal year during the summer, a lot of people refer to the summer months as kind of a summer learning loss.
Yeah.
I'm now referring that to what I'm calling the COVID learning loss. And we recognize that for a lot of our kids, that could have happened from last spring. And so I think it's important to understand that we're going to start the school year out probably reviewing a lot of the standards from the prior grade level in the spring to catch kids up where they need it, providing a lot more intervention support and tutoring to make sure that we don't have that happen. We recognize that our students are going to have that challenge and that our teachers are going to have to do a lot of catch-up work to begin the school year. So I would expect the first 6 to 9 weeks to be composed of a lot of that content building, relationship building, and review work from the spring to make sure that our students have mastered those standards from last year.
Dr. Houlihan, let's give you just a for instance, because best laid plans. Let's say a cafeteria worker or some staff member test positive for COVID. So what is the protocol in place for everyone that's been around that person?
That's a good question. Yeah.
Educator or what? I mean, we know someone tests positive, they're quarantined. If you've come in contact with them, you're supposed to quarantine. How will that work?
So very similar to what you just said, and we're working with the Department of Health and Human Services. They have those protocols published. I'm not an expert on that field, and will not claim to be an expert in the healthcare piece, but I do know that if an employee tests positive, all of our nurses and area nurses in our building, even within central services, they're going to be equipped with the tools they need from personal protective equipment to isolate individuals. Every building and school is going to have a room that is dedicated for individuals who are maybe symptomatic or who have a fever or who test positive. We will not be doing testing on site. I do want to be clear. That is not part of the public ed sector. But if an employee tests positive, they will have to remain home for a period of time. Anyone who has kind of been exposed, I assume they'll be doing some contact tracing through the health department on that issue. That won't be something that we will be doing, but we are working with the local health department and the state on those protocols. We have a kind of a larger reopening plan that we'll be publishing in the coming days, and all of these protocols will be listed in that.
Dr. Houlihan, I know you said that it's a fluid situation. We're set to go back August 17th. Just how fluid is it? Are there benchmarks that we're looking for? Number of cases, hospitalizations? I mean, is there any specific numbers that we're looking for that would allow, more in time in school? Just how fluid is it?
I don't really know, to be honest with you. In talking with colleagues across the state, every county seems to have a different set of metrics they're using.
Mm-hmm.
I know that our student support team is working with the health department on reviewing those metrics. I don't believe we've landed anywhere because we're still consulting with the health department and our health leaders. And so I don't really know what the target is. I know the lower the cases we have in the county and the region, the better off that is, and the greater likelihood we'll have to add more students in from a face-to-face standpoint because we can open up a little bit more. So, I don't really know what our local Union County metrics are, but that is something we're working on.
Does the governor, and you might not be the right person to ask this question to because I know you're not a politician, but we've had a lot of people say the governor is not taking input from anybody. He's making a lot of these decisions unilaterally. Is he asking the school systems for any input? Have you guys had any? I don't want to use the word say so because you don't get to make the decision, but is anybody saying, hey, what do y'all think would work?
There are various task forces from across the state that include principals, superintendents, teachers, parents, etc. I believe that the Department of Health and Human Services and the governor's office does have a series of those task forces that they are consulting with. I can tell you, I don't know who's on those. I know that the governor also has a teacher advisory committee that is composed of teachers from across the state that we believe have been advising him.
So we haven't got anybody on that task force, though, that you know of, do we?
No. I've been serving on, what the state superintendent put out a task force committee earlier, much more that I was named to be part of, and we've never really even had a conversation or met. That has been something that has been more of a feedback chain through other feedback structures that I've been able to participate in. But it's kind of been task force here, task force there, and different kinds of entities giving feedback. But I can't really comment on the extent to which those conversations have gone because I've not been a part of it.
They're telling you what they want you to know, basically.
They're telling us what the decision is, and they're saying go forth and implement it.
Oh, wow.
Dr. Houlihan, we know that with the virtual academy, parents and students have to commit to a minimum of one semester. At the end of that, we understand you can opt out and go to the traditional school setting or remain in the academy for the rest of the year. Tell me what a typical day in the virtual academy will look like.
So it's going to be set up very similar to what your day would look like, in school. Obviously, you're going to be from home. So start time and an end time, trying to be as structured as we can be, a combination of live and on-demand classes. And obviously, we're still working through related arts and kind of electives and those things. But we're trying to make sure that two things happen. Number one, we want to give some flexibility because we recognize that in that environment, students may work at their own pace and they may have their assignments for the week, as an example, and they're able to kind of go through those every day on their own with the help of the teacher. But in some cases, we need a little bit more structure. So our goal is to provide families and parents with that flexibility as well as the structure, specifically with live instruction, where we're actually scheduling time in which you're having your reading lessons or your history lessons done live with that teacher.
Yeah.
Be a dedicated staff member, from your school or from your school's cluster, depending on the numbers.
So the deadline to sign up for the virtual academy is Sunday, correct?
Yep.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, and based on how many people sign up for that, it may be more kids may be able to go in person?
Yeah, that's the theory, that philosophically, the more kids that we have that opt into this all virtual setting would reduce the numbers that will be coming to a face-to-face, and we could add more in. Again, you still have to meet the 6 feet social
Right.
distancing spacing in classrooms and those things. So it's really going to become a numbers game with calculations of how we can configure those spaces.
Could they?
That in theory, that's what we're trying to work through.
This may be a stupid question, but is it a possibility because gymnasiums are so much bigger that you could increase it by putting them in a bigger space and spacing? I mean, I know a classroom's only so big, but I guess that's just outside the box thinking. It may not even be feasible, but it doesn't seem to me like PE is going to be a big deal this year.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at all of our spaces, right? So, gyms, auxiliary gyms, libraries, media centers, you name it. I think that there's a lot of possibility on those issues. The other thing that I'll mention is, when possible, and obviously when it's not too hot, not too cold, a lot of educators across the nation are thinking more about outdoor classrooms and outdoor education.
Yeah.
And that might be a real possibility to have some classes that would be taught outside. I know as a former teacher, I love taking my kids out to teach them kind of in an outdoor setting. So we're trying to be as creative as we can with the spaces that we have available.
And we're almost out of time here, Dr. Houlihan, but I think for every parent in the county, I had a mom just send me a message and say, I got a high school student. What about high schoolers that maybe have internet but don't have a computer, or the computer sucks, or the internet is slow? And I mean, and we know that's not your fault. They're not blaming you for that. But she was just concerned that if one of those situations comes up, how will the school determine, first off, whether or not they're telling the truth? And there's a certain number of parents, and I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it. There's a certain percentage of parents that they're not going to care whether or not their kids do the schooling, and that's sad.
We're going to work through those situations on a case-by-case basis. Like I mentioned, we have a pretty good infrastructure when it comes to devices and hotspots to provide, that internet access. And what I would say is that if a parent has those issues, they need to contact their school principal, and we have a dedicated technology desktop support engineer that's devoted to each school that can help work through and provide you with another device if you need it. Obviously, you're going to need to turn the old one in, or the one that's not working, because we want to fix it.
That's right.
And so that's just going to be a communication issue, I think, that we would ask parents and students, please, we have a tech hotline for all of our schools.
And it needs to funnel through the schools. Like each parent out there, if your child is a student at Parkwood and you've got these questions, you need to go through Parkwood.
That is correct. Okay. Yes, and they will work with our technology department on a solution for you.
Yeah, we understand some of those older laptops are not very reliable, and they're looking hopefully to replace those with Chromebooks. But as an educator, Dr. Houlihan, you know yourself. Kids, especially younger ones, need to be in school. It's an opportunity for the teachers to interact with those students. A lot of times abuse at home is discovered, through school. And, we can't stress enough the importance of these kids actually being back in school. Absolutely.
We want to get all of our kids back into school as soon as we can. I mean, that is a priority. And to your point, one of the things that we certainly recognize is we haven't been in school since March. And there's been a lot that has happened from that point on. And we recognize that in addition to learning, there's going to be some non-academic challenges we have too. We've really been trying to bolster our social emotional learning plan, providing mental health therapists in our schools, additional nurses in our schools to make sure that when students return, not only do they have the physical teacher in place, but they also have the wraparound services that they need with social emotional support.
So, in closing, it's safe to say it sucks to be you this summer.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, and I mean that in the best possible way. It's just there's 1,000 questions that people have, and obviously they're looking to you because you're the superintendent, and obviously you don't have all the answers because you're not on all these governors' task forces, and you're not in 100 places at the same time. And I guess our county is just like every other in the state. We're just going to have to, as much as it sucks, we're going to have to figure it out as it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remind people we're literally changing public education.
Yeah.
I mean, from the ground up. We're building this thing from the ground up, and it's hard. You know, it's challenging. It's hard. I want to say a big, big thank you to our board, to our staff, our employees. I mean, we are working on this stuff, like I said, 24/7, and the support is greatly appreciated.
Well, thank you, man. We appreciate you taking time to talk with us.
Thank you for the invitation. Y'all have a great rest of the week.
Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
Dr.
Thank you.
Houlihan.